Hello and a very warm welcome to latest case analysis series by Law Seekho. This is Monica Rahar and today we'll be taking up for our discussion another Supreme Court decision which is dated 27th of August 2020. The name of the case is Nazir Mohammed versus J. Kamla and others. It's a division bench decision of the Supreme Court which was decided by a bench consisting of Honorable Justice Naveen Sinha and Honorable Justice Indira Banerjee. Now let's proceed and understand the issue of law. So the court was to decide whether a high court can allow a second appeal under section 100 of the CPC without discussing a substantial question of law. So at this moment, it is very important for us to understand the provisions of section 100. So section 100 provides that an appeal shall lie to the high court from every decree passed in appeal by any subordinate court if the high court is satisfied that the case involves a substantial question of law, and every such case it shall contain a precise statement of law in the memorandum of the appeal itself, and where the High Court is satisfied that such a substantial question of law is indeed present in the case, then it should proceed with the formulation of the question and then with the matter itself. Now, having understood the issue of law and the provisions of section 100, let's proceed with the brief facts of the matter. So the respondent, who is respondent before the Supreme Court, he was the plaintiff in the original suit. So he claimed that the suit property was purchased by his father in 1940 by a registered sale deed, and then it was rented to the appellant's father. And after the death of the appellant father, the property was rented to the appellant himself. The appellant, however, did not pay the rent of the property, and rather he tried to set up title over the suit property by applying for patta to the tehsildar. And therefore, the respondent or the plaintiff, he preferred a suit in 1994, and the suit prayed for a declaration of ownership of the suit property in favor of the respondent or the plaintiff, and second being direction to the appellant to deliver the possession to him, and third being decree of payment of rupees 900 towards default in payment of rent and also occupation charges, and fourth being a decree for payment of any future profits. Now let's proceed and understand the case of the appellant or the defendant. So the appellant contended that his father purchased the suit property by a registered sale deed in 1938, and that they were the owners of the property from the very inception, and contrary to the case of the respondent or the plaintiff, they were not the tenants, rather they were the owners of the property. And the suit property had been assessed to taxes in his father's name, and the appellant got the suit property from his father by virtue of a registered deed of release dated 14th of March 1966. Now let's proceed and understand the decision of the trial court. So the trial court in 1998 dismissed the suit and held that the respondent had failed to prove purchase of the property by his father, and he could not produce any rent agreement or receipts or any other oral or documentary evidence to establish the appellant's tenancy, and third being that he is not therefore entitled to any relief. Now, aggrieved by this decision of the trial court, the respondent or the plaintiff, he preferred first appeal before the subordinate court. The subordinate court allowed the appeal in 1999, and it set aside the trial court decision and held that the respondent was entitled to A, a declaration of title over half of the suit property, and B being that the recovery of the income, if any, from the said portion of which the respondent was the owner was also an entitlement of the respondent. And third being the respondent was also entitled for charges for use, occupation or enjoyment of such property, but he was not allowed the recovery of the possession of his half of the property. And therefore, aggrieved by this decision, both the appellant before herein, that is the appellant before the Supreme Court, and the respondent herein, they preferred appeal before the Madras High Court. Now, before the Madras High Court, the respondent's appeal was the second appeal, while the appellant approached the court as the first appellant. So the appellant appealed against the judgment of the first appellate court, while the respondent's appeal challenged the first appeal decision to the extent he was denied the relief of recovery of possession in respect of his half of the share in the property which is contested in the suit. The High Court, by its decision, it stated that the appellant's appeal was therefore dismissed by the High Court, and while the respondent's second appeal was allowed, and the court held that the respondent was entitled to recovery of half of the scheduled property at the time of the execution of decree. Therefore, by virtue of the decision of the High Court, this finding or decision of the first subordinate court, it was reversed, and now the appellant or the respondent was entitled to recover his half of the property at the time of the execution of the decree. Now, aggrieved by this, the defendant in the original suit, they preferred an appeal before the Supreme Court, and therefore they are the present appellant. Now, let's understand the reasoning and decision of the court. So, the court dealt in detail with the law governing the substantial question of law and the status of substantial question of law in second appeal and the High Court's duty with respect to the same. So, the court stated that appeal is not a matter of right, rather it is a statutory creation, and second appeal only lies on substantial question of law, which is a sine qua non for section 100 of CPC. If a statute confers a limited right of appeal, then the scope of it cannot be extended by the High Court. Secondly, the court observed that to be a substantial question, a question must be debatable, not previously settled by law or any binding precedent, and must have a material bearing on the court's decision and or the party's rights. And now we've discussed what should be a substantial question. Now the court discussed what should be a question of law involved in the case. So the court stated that to be a question of law involved in the case, there must be a foundation for it laid down in the pleadings itself, and the question should emerge from the substantial findings of fact arrived at by the court of facts, and it must be necessary to decide the question of law for a just and proper decision of the court. Then the court proceeded and stated that when no substantial question of law is formulated, but a second appeal is still preferred or decided by the High Court, it is vitiated in law. So that is to say, the court stated that when the second appeal does not have a question of law and the High Court yet proceeds and decide the question, then it is vitiated in law as held by the Supreme Court in the case of Vishwanath Ghosh versus Govinda Ghosh. The court further held that formulation of substantial question of law is mandatory, and the mere reference of the ground mentioned in the memorandum of second appeal cannot satisfy the mandate of section 100. The court then went on to held that neither of the two questions which are formed or framed by the High Court is a question of law, let alone a substantial question. So the High Court essentially formed two questions which were entirely based on the facts of the matter, and they were not a substantial question of law, and this is what the Supreme Court held. The court further held that neither there was a controversy before the High Court with respect to interpretation or legal effect of any document, nor any wrong application of a principle of law in construing a document or otherwise, which might have given rise to a question of law. And there was no debatable issue before the High Court which was not covered by settled principle of law and or the precedents given by the Supreme Court and various High Courts. And fifthly, it was held by the Supreme Court that the first appellate court examined the evidence at length, and it arrived at a reasoned conclusion that the appellant was the owner of a part of the suit property and the respondent was owner of the other half. This finding is based on a concrete set of evidence and binding document of title, which is registered deeds of conveyance by which respective predecessors in interest of both the appellant and the respondent acquired the title, and there was no erroneous inference from any proved fact, nor had the burden of proof erroneously been shifted. So therefore, the court stated that it has time and again deprecated the practice of dismissing second appeal with a non-speaking order, only recording that the case did not involve a substantial question of law. This is a very important finding which the court stated that, which we need to keep in our mind, that the High Court cannot allow a second appeal without discussing the question of law which the High Court in the present case did. And therefore, the court allowed the appeals. The judgment and orders of the High Court of Madras were set aside to the extent the second appeal was allowed, and the judgment and decree of the first appellate court, which is the subordinate court, it was restored. So for our understanding, what we need to understand from this entire case analysis is that a high court cannot entertain a second appeal without satisfying itself that there is a substantial question of law involved in the case, and that the memorandum of the appeal precisely states the substantial question of law. Now, if you have any questions with respect to this case analysis, kindly feel free to mention the same in the comment section. We will be glad to answer the same. And for your kind approval, we've also provided a list of abbreviations which we have used in the note. Thank you for being with us. We hope this was a productive session for all of us.